Welcome to OState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, today we have a very, very, very special guest joining OState Daily, linebacker from 02 to 05. I got those years right, Paul?
Correct, yep.
Okay, Paul Duren joins Oklahoma State, one of the tough guys of all time. In this program, you see the deer hunting gear on, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Did you do any good today?
We did. I did not do any good today. I didn't do anything this morning, so hopefully this afternoon it gets a little better. I figured it was being this cold, it would be a little better this morning.
Well, hey, you got to be excited because Coach Jones, I know you actually got to play with him at Oklahoma State. He is the coach to your alma mater, Del City. He absolutely has the Eagles rolling. The only problem is right across town, you got that big juggernaut in Carl Albert, right? Okay, can they get past Carl Albert this year?
I hope so, man. You know, they've got a really good team. I think their defense is probably a lot better, a little better than they were last year. I don't think Carl Albert's is good offensively, and I think Del City's probably better a little bit on both sides of the ball. So I think we've got a good chance. I mean, I don't want to say we can beat them because I'm not positive, but I think Robert's got those guys. He's done an amazing job with that program. When he took it over, it wasn't too bad. We were, staying around 500, and he's an amazing coach, and he's really an amazing role model for those young men, too.
I think coming back to 5A has been really good for Del City, too. But you mentioned Robert Jones, the head coach there at Del City. You got to play with him on the same defense at Oklahoma State. He's now your head coach at your alma mater. Do you ever go back to Eagle Stadium there and share stories or talk to the kids?
Last year I got to go back to quite a few games. This year, my nephew is actually the starting right guard for Jones.
Oh, and nice.
So I've been going to quite a few of his games. He's a little bit different position than I play. He's a big old down lineman, so he's done a great job. But like I said, I was go back to your 5A comment, man. I would have loved to have been in 5A when we were there. We had to beat Jinx and Union. It was just it was too much for us.
Too much for pretty much everybody at that point because nobody was beating Jinx and Union. So, okay, so you're a three-time state champion, right? I talked to Jay Fleshman about a month ago. He was that way at Sand Springs. Still coaches wrestling there for the Sandites. Also a great baseball player. We know about your career on the gridiron. So talk about all the sports you got to play there at Del City.
That was what was so unique about playing at a 6A school, because I'd always been told my whole life that, hey, you got to pick a sport. You can't play all these sports. And I never had any coach ever pressure me the whole time I was at Del City, as far as, hey, you can't be wrestling and play baseball. That was always the cool thing I felt like about Del City. It kind of had a small town feel, but 6A program. But I loved every sport. I thought every sport prepared me for the next sport. I hate to see when young kids nowadays try to specialize in a sport at such a young age. That makes no sense to me. And you got these coaches pressuring them, and then you've got these kids that are phenoms at 8 and 9 years old that they don't end up playing when they're 14 because they're burned out because their parents have had them play 170 games a year. So I kind of try to find a fine line. I have 2 little girls that are softball players, and they play basketball and stuff, and so I get an opportunity to kind of coach them and teach them kind of the ways that how I learn things.
Yeah, and I've played many a baseball game, coached many a baseball game there at the baseball field of Del City. Really cool thing about it, you have all those trees behind left field, right? And so I got to know, did Paul Duren batting practice during a game? Did we ever clear the trees with a home run?
I actually did a couple times. We did. I did one against. I'll never forget. It was a Legion game. We played a team from Caney, and they had a big old tall pitcher who was throwing pretty hard, and I got a hold of one out there. Then like you said, I hit so many balls at that place. Me and my dad used to go. He'd throw me batting practice all the time, so I was able to kind of unleash a couple out of there.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome. Got to know all about your wrestling career on the mat. Some of the dudes that you went up against, some of your biggest rivals, and some of the best moments you can remember.
Oh, man, I had so many good moments in wrestling. To me, the biggest moments for me were team moments. We got second in dual state my freshman year.
Oh, nice.
We actually, kind of a crazy story. We were down 23 points, which in wrestling, a fall is worth 6 points. We had 4 matches left. And we had to pin out to make it to the finals, and we actually pinned out to make it to the finals, which is a crazy story. I think it's like one of the largest comebacks in dual state history or something like that. Man, rival wise, it's kind of hard to put into words. A rival, I mean, not really sure I had a crazy rival that I can remember. I mean, I had all those kids growing up. I mean, the Bill Smithwoods of the world, and there was guys in high school that were tough. Matt Madden was another one that was tough. Adam Crane was always tough. But like I said, to me, the biggest moments for me were I loved duels. I loved wrestling with my buddies. I loved going to tournaments, and so those were the biggest moments for me.
Yeah, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and not eating and having to cut all that weight. I never understood what made people love wrestling, but once it gets in your blood, it stays there, no doubt. So I don't think a lot of Oklahoma State fans realize you were actually a quarterback. We remember seeing you being the tough guy at linebacker, right? You're actually a quarterback at Del City, and one of the best stories about you, I believe it was your senior year, you break a bone, right? And you're basically running on one leg, and you end up scoring a touchdown, hopping on one leg, and played the entire game at quarterback on a broken bone, right?
Yeah, so I broke my foot 5th or 6th game of the year, and I ended up didn't set out any. I probably should have, looking back, set out and let it heal a little bit, but it was my senior year, and it was my last time to play with my buddies, and I was like, man, I'm never going to have this opportunity again. So I played pretty hobbled the last half of my senior year, which, it hurt a little bit on recruitment-wise, but, it is what it is. To me, it's like I'm never going to get that moment back. I'm never going to get to play with my buddies. And a lot of the guys, believe it or not, living in Del City, a lot of the guys that I played with my senior year, I played with since 5-6-year-old Viking football. So, I mean, there was probably 7 or 8 of us that literally played all the way growing up together. So it was just, like you said, that mentality was just kind of taught to me by my mom and dad, just, the mental toughness. And, at the end of the day, I wasn't going to set out.
Oh, no doubt about that. So being a wrestler and growing up in Del City, of course, that's where all the Smiths are from, John Smith and Pat Smith and all them. So what did that name mean to you?
Oh, those guys they're legends. I mean, they're heroes. They're heroes for a lot of kids around the world, but especially for a Del City boy like me. That was always something to look up to. I can still remember 6 or 7 years old going to John, came to Del City and brought his gold medal, and going and, seeing that and stuff. And a crazy story. So John's parents lived about 5 houses down from my grandparents. So my dad, grew up right next to the Smiths his whole life. So we've always had a good family relationship with those guys, and they've always been really supportive of me. John really tried to get me to wrestle in college. The problem was, football was paying the scholarship, and I had about 240 to play football, and I didn't want to wrestle heavyweight. So I'd had to drop to 197, which, I don't think Les Miles would have been really okay with that. So that was my biggest dilemma, because I would have loved to have tried to do both, but I just didn't want to wrestle heavyweight. I didn't feel like my style was good for heavyweight.
You mentioned the blue-collar roots, the toughness, the mental toughness, the physical toughness that your parents taught you. Your dad was a firefighter in Norman and a huge OU fan. So how did all that go down, man?
Man, and it's kind of my dad was always a huge OU fan. My brother was a huge OU fan too, believe it or not. But, the moment I signed with OSU, I was all over with. They despise OU as much as I despise OU now. So there's no love there. I can tell you that. And I think that kind of goes with, to me, I just feel like once you're in that rivalry. I've just always been that way mentally. I've always been, man, if you're my rival, you're just my rival for life. That's just how maybe that's a goofy mentality, but that's just how I look at life. I mean, even, Del City, Midwest City in high school was a huge rivalry, and those dudes, I still don't like Mill City.
Yeah, no doubt. That's absolutely awesome. So you made it bang as soon as you came to Oklahoma State, and you were the leading tackler in 2002. Your very first year there, you were a freshman All-American. That had to be a really cool experience.
Oh, it was awesome. That's the thing is, people think as an adult that you get away from that little kid mentality, but you still have mentality as a little. I mean, as an adult is, I'll never forget the playing the Nebraskas and the, seeing there'd be some times where you're sitting in a game and you're like going, man, I'm actually out here in this field playing against these guys. So that was always, it was such an awesome experience. I said I wouldn't trade anything in the world to play those games at Oklahoma State. I love Oklahoma State. I always will. And I always be loyal to Oklahoma State because they took an opportunity on an option quarterback. Could have worked out, couldn't have worked out. It's kind of one of those deals where they took a shot at me and I felt like I proved myself right.
I would say you did that plus some. You had to develop some incredible relationships. So talk about all the guys you got to play with.
Oh, yeah. I had great relationships. I also got to play with Kevin Williams, who I feel like should be an NFL Hall of Famer as well.
Yeah.
We had so many good relationships. I came in with Josh Fields and Billy Badgema, those guys. That was our recruiting class, which was actually a really low recruiting class star-wise, and turned out we had a pretty good career there.
Yeah, typical OSU.
Yeah, and Darren Williams, and Vernon Grant, those two guys were amazing guys, man. I tell you, me and Darren Williams spent a lot of time playing poker at his house. But VG's how I say Vernon Grant. I saw a deal the other day about his son playing football and stuff, and it was pretty awesome. It's pretty crazy when and you're 22, 23 years old and you get a phone call that one of your buddies passed away in a car accident, but it was right before our senior year. Guy was just so full of life, man. Just an amazing guy to be around, always upbeat. A funny story about VG, where we'd gotten, I don't even know why we got into an argument. We got into an argument about something in the locker room, and we go out to practice, and we're a scout team, and there sometimes there were some arguments and contention there, and this kid cheap shops him. Well, before I can even come to turn around to get him, Vernon is flying across the field and literally does a flying drop kick on this kid and knocks him up against the wall. I'll never forget it. That was just kind of our relationship.
You played for Bill Clay defensively, so what was he like to play for?
Bill Clay, he's such an amazing guy because he was the guy basically that, he was who recruited me pretty hard. He was one of those guys that old school mentality. We ran that 4-2-5, which is a Virginia Tech style defense, and I nothing but respect. The guy played with Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson at Arkansas, had so much football knowledge, and I was able to pick his brain, and for a little while I thought, man, maybe the coaching route is where I want to go, but man, I just saw constant moving around, and the hours were crazy, and so I kind of pushed that aside. But he taught me so many things and so much knowledge of the game, and I feel like that led me to be successful. He put me in right positions to be successful, and also watching film with him was pretty awesome. He had some crazy sayings too. He had some old school sayings that were pretty hilarious.
What about Les Miles, man? What was he like to play for? That'd be crazy, didn't it?
Les is one thing I will say about Les is whatever you see on TV, that's what he is. You know what I mean? Like, people act like people put on a front, and Les is just really that odd. He just is a different breed of cat. Hey, say what you want, but he's a winning coach, and the program was in a pretty bad state when he took it over, and we went to 3 straight bowl games. He went to LSU, won a national championship. His old school mentality, I think, is kind of what that program needed at the time. Do I think he can sustain long programs? Probably not, because he's so rough on as far as, we would go live. I'm not kidding you. We would go one-on-ones, 10th, 11th week of the season, just full blast scrimmages at practice, and I'm like, these kids nowadays, I don't think they wear pads at practice. It's obviously showing with this defense because they can't.
God. That has to drive somebody like you nuts, right? The tackling.
Man, that was one thing that I prided myself on. I didn't, just go smoke a lot of guys, but my deal was I was a sure tackler, and it just drives me nuts when these guys trying to arm tackle and they
dive.
Man, it's bad. It's bad right now. And like I said, I don't want to talk bad about anybody at Oklahoma State because I know they're all out there trying their best, but man, something's got to change as far as what they're doing defensively.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So, hey, do you remember anything about the 2004 opener against Maurice Drew and UCLA and the beatdown we put on them?
Oh yeah. What's funny is crazy story. So about a year or two after I got done playing, we were doing a fantasy football draft, and like 5 or 6 of the first picks in the draft were guys I played against. It was like Cedric Benson, Adrian Peterson, Maurice Jones-Drew, Vince Young. I mean, it was just a crazy. Yeah. It was kind of cool to see stuff like that. I mean, we played against some really good teams, and in that state, and then get to play in the Rose Bowl was pretty awesome. That was a pretty cool experience. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even realize that's where UCLA played their home games until we're on our way there, and they're like, we're playing the Rose Bowl, and I'm like, what do you mean we're playing the Rose Bowl? That's where UCLA plays. I was like, oh, okay.
You just remember that Keith Jackson announces a game there every year on January 1st, right? That's the Rose Bowl to guys like us. Eli Manning in the Cotton Bowl. What do you remember about him?
Eli was such a cerebral guy. I mean, I feel like he was constantly doing checks. I was kind of, I was kind of the leader of the defense at that time as far as making play calls. And so when he would check, I would check. It was kind of a chess battle. I mean, and it came down to the very end, and we needed to stop, and we actually called a play call that was really good on defense, and we missed a tackle, and they got the first down, and they ended up beating us 31-28 in that game. Yeah, what a cool experience. I mean, there was a banquet, and Archie Manning was there, and at that time I didn't realize Eli Manning was going to be the first pick of the draft, and he ends up winning 2 Super Bowls for the Giants. But yeah, really cool experience.
Vince Young, how good was he on the field?
Oh, he's as good as advertised. People ask me all the time, who's the best guy I ever played against? I mean, for us, we could never beat Texas at that time. And now, but we got
that big lead on him too, and we had the one where he faked Donovan Woods out. Gosh.
Yeah, 35-7. We had a lead on him in Austin. Believe it or not, we were up 35-7 on him in Austin. Actually, 35-14 at halftime. Mm-hmm. And we get beat 52-30. That's how good Vince Young is. I mean, the guy was. The thing with him is people don't realize how big he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he is every bit of 6'6" and 250, 240 pounds, and he runs like a deer. I mean, that's the thing with him. People also don't realize how fast he is because of his long stride. You don't think he's as fast as he is, and then when he takes off, and it's like, man. He's as good. To me, he was the best college football player maybe ever, and the best college football player I played against.
Oklahoma State fans got pretty attached to Les Miles. We had made the Cotton Bowl. We had made the Alamo Bowl. We played Ohio State, and all of a sudden it's just kind of a weird game. We don't play very well. Ohio State beats us pretty good. Then we find out that Les Miles is leaving, and that whole situation just kind of made sense at that point. So what do you remember about that situation as a player?
What's unique? This was before social media, and this was before all the craze of Facebook and all that stuff. So we would get the only thing we had heard was Coach Clay came into our meeting room. This was just with the linebackers, and basically said, "Hey, I'm letting you guys know, Les is talking to LSU. Do I know if he's going to take the job? I do not know, but I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. Les is talking to LSU." Well, so we go, so we hear that and we're like, oh, that's kind of weird, whatever. Well, we go into pregame, and Les Miles gives this crazy speech about how if you don't like me, you need to leave because I'm not MFing going anywhere, This crazy speech that he was notorious for. And so we're like, okay, well, maybe I guess he's not going anywhere, that type of deal. And that didn't affect the game. I'm going to be honest with you, that Ohio State team was arguably the best team I've ever played against in my life. They had 3 first-round wide receivers.
Was that the Joey Galloway years?
No, that was Santonio Holmes.
Holmes, yeah.
Yeah, Santonio Holmes, Ted Ginn, and Anthony Gonzalez all went in the first round. Then they had 3 crazy linebackers, A.J. Hawk, Bobby Carpenter. Can't remember the other guy's name. They had Dante Whitner. I mean, that team was just they were good, you know. And I felt like at that time we kind of had some moments where we played a little better than we actually were. At the end of the year, I don't know how good that team was, but that to people act like that affected the game. I'd be blunt and honest with you. That team was just better than us.
What do you remember about Coach Gundy as a young coach? You got to experience playing for now. You were on the defensive side. He was on the offensive side, but I'm sure you had some crossover there. What do you remember about him being a young coach during that time?
So, unique situation with Coach Gundy. Coach Gundy's wife was my brother's best friend's sister. So we had a long relationship with, Coach Gundy's wife and their family. So I kind of knew who Coach Gundy was. Coach Gundy came to my house and recruited me, actually, when he took over as offensive coordinator. When Les got the job, he came and was the one that recruited me and offered me and all that stuff, and then brought me in to meet with Coach Clay. But he was kind of over that area at that time. I think Coach Gundy's done an amazing job at Oklahoma State. People can hate on him all they want. I do not think the program would have done as successful with Les Miles at the coaching helm for this long. I think they made a great decision when they hired Coach Gundy. Do I think maybe it's time for a change? I don't know, but I can't figure out what happened this year, to be honest with you. But I think Coach Gundy's done an amazing job, and I don't think that we could have gotten a better coach.
Watching this year's defense, if you had a chance to go talk to them and get in front of them and just send them a message and give them your message, what would it be?
I would say finish strong. I say you've got one game left. A lot of these guys, it's their last game of their career. I mean, a lot of these guys that whole team that was brought back is seniors this year. So, I mean, I would just say finish strong. I said you got to have a mentality of going out, try to go out with a win and leave a legacy with this program, because they've done a great job there. I mean, you can't. This 1 year doesn't define. I mean, we had a really bad. I had a really bad senior year. I mean, we didn't have a good senior year. So I mean, that didn't define us. We went to 3 straight bowl games, brought the program back from, a 3-8 season the previous year. So I mean, I wouldn't say this is all their legacy is left, with this one season. But they just got to go finish strong. You got to sure up tackles, and you just got to go out there and leave it all on the field.
Absolutely. Do you have any favorite moments at OSU? Don't have to be on the football field. Oh
man, I mean, it would be hard for me not to say Bedlam in 02. I think you're close to the same age as me, but it's one of those times where you play a video game, and I don't know if you remember this, but on college and NCAA football, the screen would shake.
Yeah.
Vibrate and shake. That's exactly how that field felt that day. I'll never forget it, because it was, I'll never forget when Rashawn made that touchdown to go up. I think it was I want to say it was 28-7, 35-7, something like that. We went up, and that stadium was literally rocking. It was rocking and shaking at the same time. I mean, to say I would, as a kid growing up in Oklahoma, to run out on Gaylord Stadium, that's pretty cool. I mean, no matter what, especially as a rival, and then we beat them. So it's one of those are some great moments. The bowl games are always fun because you get to hang out with your buddies for a little while and kind of relax, and then get to play in a different stadium and get some gear and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's the things I miss more than anything about college football is the camaraderie with your buddies. I mean, those what's funny is what's unique, I guess, about college football is all these guys grew up in different areas. So when most of them go back home, so if you see them, it's maybe once a year at an alumni deal. I stay in touch with Josh a lot, Billy Badgema and J.D. Bray and Machado and those guys. I stay in touch with as many as I can, but I've got 5 kids and we live out in the middle of the country. So.
Oh wow! You mentioned the 5 kids in the middle of the country. By the way, I wanted to back up. Billy Badgema had a pretty good day that day against OU in that game you're talking about, where the stadium was rocking. I can just remember him going right down the middle and just gashing OU. I love that game. That was fantastic. But hey, you mentioned you're living in the middle of the country, 5 kids. Catch us up on what Paul Duren's been doing since his playing days.
So I got done playing and got a job out at Chesapeake.
Oh, nice.
Worked out there for about 12 years and then started with this company I'm with now and been with them for almost 7 years now, a company called Chem Oil. Got married, and as soon as I got married, we just started having kids. So I have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Oh, any wrestlers?
The 6-year-old and 4-year-old I just took to their first practice. My oldest 2 are girls, and I get to coach their softball team. But my 6-year-old and 4-year-old, I just took them to their first 2 practices last week, and so I'm hoping they're going to be wrestlers. We'll see, though. You just never know. I mean, to me, that mentality with wrestling is a totally different beast than the other.
It absolutely is. I think that's one thing that's helped Coach Gundy over the years. Just, his cockiness, but confidence, I think, more so is what it is. And I think a lot of that came from the wrestling, Matt, that he wrestled on it as a young kid.
Oh, people don't realize Coach Gundy was tough. Coach Gundy was a really good wrestler. He wasn't just an average wrestler. He was a state champ. And in junior high, when you're a state champ, it's not like it's separating classes. It's the junior high. To me, junior high state champ is the best of the best because it's every class all put together. So you've got 80 or 90 kids in your brackets at those deals compared to, when they're split up in different classes in high school. Coach Gundy was tough.
Yeah, still is.
Yeah, yes.
Absolutely. So how connected do you stay to the program?
Man, I still stay in touch with a few guys. All the guys are gone from when I was there besides Justin Williams, who's over all the equipment stuff up there. And I still talk to him some and stay in touch with him. I got to take, Justin kind of hooked me up with Coach Gajewski. I got to take my softball team out there to go to a practice, and he was awesome. He let them do so much different things, and I was so grateful for it. I'm like, it's pretty amazing how they treat alumni. I've never really asked for a whole lot, and I don't ask for tickets or any of that stuff. So I just, I feel like I'm a grown adult. If I want to go somewhere, I can go ahead and pay for my own tickets.
That's awesome. Hey, final thoughts. This has been just a wonderful honor to get to catch up with you, Paul Duren. This has been absolutely a blast for me. So any final thoughts?
Well, see, you got that Guthrie Blue Jays. Is that Guthrie Blue Jays there?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
They're on the other side of the bracket. I was hoping Dale City could get on that other side.
Away from Carl Albert, right?
Away from Carl Albert, yeah. No, it's been, like I said,
there were some strategic conversations about that in districting a couple years ago.
Yeah. No, I had an amazing experience at Oklahoma State. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It's prepared me for life. It's prepared me for a lot of different things. I feel like I've had a successful career in oil and gas industry because of the things I've learned at Oklahoma State. I just feel like, I'll always be loyal and I'll always be true. And that's just how I was raised as well.
Paul Duren, thank you so much.
I appreciate you, man.